Hello, one and all, and welcome to another episode of Baggers Chat. My name is Mitch Pattinson, and as always, we're joined by Ethan Daffy. And tonight, we are previewing our round 19 clash, Carlton versus North Melbourne at Marvel Stadium, Sunday, 21st of July, 4:40 p.m. One of Ethan's great, sayings is the graveyard shift from the day. But first things first, mate. How are you? We've both had pretty big days, but have to get this episode out. So, how are you? First things first, and what are your overall initial thoughts for the game this Sunday, which could be a danger game?
Yeah, it feels like it's always a danger game against this mob. Even though we've won the last few against them now, so obviously the Good Friday games. But yeah, I'm feeling quite good. Obviously, the last 2 weeks have been a little bit of a minor speed bump. But I think you look at the year and you look at the teams we actually came up against the last 2 weeks who, they've been good teams. We've got to actually think that as well. It's two teams that are pushing for the 8, which is always extra motivation and a bit of extra pressure on them too, to play well. So, and I feel like the mentality we have kind of now is that hunted mentality, especially when you win 5 in a row and you get a game clear second. Obviously before last week, and I feel like we're not really used to that, I think, being the hunted, and obviously Sydney's the top dog, and they're obviously they will be the hunted for the rest of the year, I'd imagine, unless they have a complete fall off. But yeah, feeling good, mate, and looking forward to the 4:40 graveyard. Jeez, there's a late game in it on a Sunday. It's a late game, bloody hell.
Yeah. And then, even when there's a Perth game and it's like at 6:40 or something, especially if we would be working the game, oh God, that's a absolute nightmare of the game. But now, has your mindset kind of changed from last week's loss? Like, I know that the review, which is always quite good. We always like giving our raw emotion, but has your mindset kind of changed? Now having like a few days to kind of recover and think about it, has that changed?
Yeah, I guess it's always lurking in the back of your mind, as Carlton Nuffies, you've always got in the back of your head going, there's always that's like the devil and the angel on your shoulder telling you different stuff. But yeah, like I said, I feel still optimistic that we can hit this last 6 weeks pretty hard and get some dubs and lock in the second spot, which I think we deserve. I think we played consistent footy, and I know we talked about selection and coaching staff and all that, but I think I still have absolute faith in what they do. I think they've probably given us enough trust this year on the decisions they've made, and especially off the back of maybe a kind of form slumps. I feel like that kind of form slump from round 9 to whatever it was. We lost to Collingwood, Sydney, around that mark. They kind of fixed that, and then obviously led to a 5-week period. So hopefully they fix it through selection and just overall structure, which probably would love to see this weekend and in a game against a lower side.
And we kind of speak about the structure, and we're going to swing straight into the injury list. Now, I'm going to throw to you, Daffy Boy, because obviously you were the person that kind of wrote down these notes. So I'm going to go straight to you for, I guess, the injury list and some updates on some players, whether it's they were injured last week or even some returning players potentially this week. What have you got?
Yeah, obviously some good news. Obviously one kind of minor bad news, I guess. Obviously no injury is good news, but I'll start from the top actually with the with the injury of Zach Williams. Obviously he did his hammy last week against the Dogs. I feel like with those guys, it's always a bit iffy when they have soft tissues, and that's a to be confirmed. So that's never a good sign. A TBC next to an injury report, but hopefully he comes back. And geez, it's going to be hard to get in the side if he's. We did speak about it before he even got injured. That if he does get injured or comes out of the side for whatever reason, I think he's going to find it hard to come back into the side, because I think the back six is at a point where obviously we're still I've got changes in the back six for this game, but I feel like as a unit they're pretty set in stone. So yeah, that's disappointing on Williams, and obviously good news is McGovern is a test, and it sounds optimistic. It doesn't sound like just a test, for no reason, kind of still a weak test. I think it's a proper test, and he'll be back this week. I think. I think he's much needed in terms of ball use. I think we lacked a little bit of creativity without him in that D50, excuse me, on the weekend. And final injury kind of report is Orazio Fantasia's calf. He hurt the NFL on the weekend. He's a test, so it's interesting. He's had a history, so I would imagine maybe they give him the week. But who knows? He might be all right. It might have been just a minor, like, I don't want to risk it before I get injured. I don't know. And obviously Jack Martin got through the VFL, which is fantastic to see. And we both touched on a couple of his highlights before we filmed, and he looks ready to go, in my opinion. He was zipping and zapping and doing the Jack Martin things we love. So overall, Patto, what's your overall thoughts on, the injury list?
Yeah, they are four keys, aren't they? Like when you kind of think about it, Orazio obviously is a player that, like, arguably safe. Maybe he could play in the best 22, but maybe not. But you kind of think about it, and when he's been playing, he hasn't really lost a lot of games. So obviously McGovern, Williams, and Jack Martin, they're crucial ins. Like they are. I think Jack Martin, we kind of forget how important he is, and there's, I guess, opinions and comments about Jack Martin, whether we should be playing him in the VFL, but I just think he's had that run through the VFL, and I think in my opinion, I think he's almost a lock to come back in this week. And like, I'm going to throw straight to you. So obviously, shout out to Kez, your mother. But what was that she said earlier about Zachy Williams and Jack Martin, mate?
Yeah, I don't know if it's 100% a fact, but she said about Zach Williams and Jack Martin can never seem to be in the same side. One of them's injured and one of them's in all the time. And I kind of laughed at her at first, as a bit of a joke, and then I realised she's actually not wrong there. So shout out to Kez there. But yeah, it's an interesting thing. You never see them both. It's really weird. Obviously, they don't really help each other's causes. They're always long term, both of them. So I think they've probably both been on the injury list at some point together, but they just never on the park together, which I feel like now might be hard because they're almost playing a similar role to each other. And I feel like Jack Martin could probably play that role just a little bit better and a bit, I don't know, a bit more around goals. He's, that natural, but not saying Zach has been bad, but Jack Martin's he's a forward.
Yeah, well, exactly right, and that's why we'll swing straight into the ins and outs now. And we kind of gave a sneak peek in the review last episode of there has to be some selection integrity this week of we need to make some selection statements. And it's not even because we played poorly last week, but it's also we need to sort out what our finals team will be heading into the next few weeks. Because as I mentioned in a comment, I think on the last episode, someone commented and I kind of explained about right now, this is when most teams that are playing in finals should be peaking. But we're kind of now starting to go into a little bit of a dip. And I think this week, you would bloody expect us to get the win this week. So I don't think we learn too much this week. But then we head into round 20 and then there's 4 rounds left. And there's not a lot of time to really sort out what our structure should be. And I think there's a lot of conversation going to that the forward structure in particular, but also what's happening in that midfield. I think that the defense is quite structured, and I think obviously coming back in, he's a crucial in. So I don't think there will be a lot of changes in that back line, but there can be some changes in that forward and midfield that realistically, if Vossi wants to make, he can arguably make 6 or 7 changes this week. I know that I'm making 5, but could be 4. Because obviously we'll speak about that last change. But let's head straight into the ins and outs stuff. Well, I'll throw straight to you. Your ins and outs with your sub, because once again, it's a big week this week. Because as I mentioned, it's not probably the right week because we're playing against North Melbourne. You would expect us to win no matter what, and if we're losing, my golly gosh. But I don't think we will learn a lot, but I just want to see what your ins and outs will be. So what have you got?
Yeah, it was definitely a lot of thought at the dinner table about an hour or so ago, going through different things. And, we always like doing like for like. I feel like that's kind of consistent in both of our selections where someone gets dropped. Obviously I've got some like for likes, of course, but I think a lot of it goes to some guys who are completely out of form and we just have to drop them. We just have to drop them, in my opinion. So I'll start off with my outs. I've got Ollie Hollands out of this side. Once again, I know he gets his touches, but he's losing a lot of his one-on-ones. He's losing a lot of his 50-50 contests against bigger bodies, and that's just because he's a young player. Do him a favour, Bossy. Do him a favour and put him in the twos, get a lot of the footy, and then he comes back in after a few weeks. Is it really that hard? Should have been done 5-6 weeks ago, in my opinion. He just hasn't had that year, has he? It's that kind of second year blues, I feel like a lot of players have. So, Ollie, I got Brody Camp out. It's I want to see the mix with these key backs, Wiedering obviously, and some names that I'll put into the side. So Cottrell's out for me as well. He's been a ghost for 2 weeks. He comes back in the Giants game, ghosted that game, played the other day. It looked like he was a local footballer pulled from the stands. So that's the way he's been playing. Sorry, but I don't, unrewarded running is fantastic. Him and Ollie, fantastic. But there's a time there's a time when unrewarded running and not enough output with ball in hand or whatever. It's just sorry. Just do him a favour as well. Play him 2 weeks in the twos and see if he's good enough to come back in this side. And my last omission's Pitto. I was we're very harsh on him in the review, I feel. And I was watching First Crack on Sunday night, and there was footage of all these hit outs to advantage. He was hitting them on a platter for these midfielders. And there was 5 of them that was literally had Chera's name on it, and about 3 of them led to goals. So hit out to advantage on a platter leads to goals. So that's another question I need to raise in terms of Chera. And we spoke about him, yesterday on messages, and people have been talking about him on the different various channels. Sometimes all the blame can't go on Pitto. I know the structure is better without him. But gee, he's probably in for his ruck work, and he probably, he had the most he has to advantage in the competition this weekend. I think there was some stat I read before. So that's an interesting take, but I'm dropping him after pumping his tyres up in the ruck. So ins for me, I've got Mitch McGovern in. I think he'll play. We talk about, giving guys an extra week. I feel like he needs to play this week. I don't want any, just confusion in that D50 on the weekend. Really baffled me without him in the side, especially with the ball use. I feel like there was one instance, especially Boyd's kick out on the full, that one he did. And he's just stuff you don't see. And I think we're just lacking a bit of confidence out of the D50 without him. I've got Georgie Hewitt. He should never be playing for AFL footy again. What is going on there? He would have stopped a lot of those goals on the weekend in terms of defensively. And people talk about speed, but I don't think speed was the massive. Obviously, it's a factor, but it's a factor when the ball gets out of the stoppage. He's not letting it out the stoppage. So, yeah, Georgie's in for me. He had 35 and a goal or something in the twos. I can't believe he's playing twos. But next in, I've got 2 guys who haven't featured that much this year. I've got Jack Martin coming into the side. We spoke about him. He's had a few good moments on the weekend. I think he has to play in a game like this. And I've kind of got him on that 3 quarters maybe, and then sub him out at quarter time. And my final in is David Cunningham. He's had some really good form in the twos over the last month or so. He's been fit. I don't think people realise that. He's actually been, that's not his issue in the last, 5-6 weeks. So he's been playing consistent footy. You've got to reward these guys. Don't reward Cottrell, who hasn't played. Reward Cunningham. And finally, my sub will be David Cunningham as well. And Kennedy will be elevated to the starting 22.
Okay, like it. Did you have Zach Williams as an out?
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Fuck.
No, that's all right. Because I just thought, I mean, like, there hasn't been a lot of conversation going
Yeah,
that. But
yeah.
did you have, no,
So if he's out, fuck.
I,
He's out.
can I give you an opinion?
Oh, Motlop comes in.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, yeah, sweet. Sort it out.
Yeah.
Well, actually, if that's the case, well, obviously he's injured, so he won't be played this weekend.
Yeah.
He comes out, Motlop comes in, Cunningham goes to 22, Motlop's the sub.
Okay, so you're having Motlop as a sub and Cunners in.
I want Cunners kind of playing that half forward, mid wing type role on the weekend. I think if we bring out Hollands and Cottrell, we lose a bit of that running capacity on the wing and half forward. So I think Cunningham can provide that.
Yeah. No. I really like it. I will be honest, I did have Cunners as an in. I feel like I always say that, but like this week I generally had Cunners in.
Yep.
I really thought about it because, I mean, it's the exact same as you. I really had to think about it and making sure that the selections were what I want it to be. But obviously, like, there might be people that might disagree, might go completely the other way. Vossi might only make one change this week, which will be Zach Williams out for whoever, like a Motlop or like a Jack Martin. But so I've got what? So 1, 2, 3. I've got 5 ins.
Yeah.
I've got 5 ins.
I've got the same now. I've got the same.
Yeah. So your out is Williams, Pitto, Cottrell, Hollands, Kemp.
Yes.
Right? Cool. So that's locked in. So my out is the exact same. So Zach Williams, Pitto, Cottrell, Hollands, Kemp, they're all out. But McGovern, obviously being a test,
yeah.
conversation has to go to, we're playing North Melbourne. No disrespect to North Melbourne, but they're not in the greatest position right now. Do we risk an important player like Mitch McGovern, knowing that we will be playing finals in season 2024? Do we just give McGovern just another week? I don't know. So I've kind of gone with McGovern in, Kemp out, but if McGovern isn't fit, Kemp gets another game. And, he's had it 2 or 3 weeks where there's been a bit of conversation going to him saying he shouldn't be in the side, but I can see it happening. Maybe giving Mitch McGovern another week, but I don't know. Like, especially with what he's had to deal with in terms of injury. So I don't know if you give him another week and give him a bit like the Jack Martin treatment of just give him a few more weeks.
The good thing I look at it with his injury, it wasn't a soft tissue, it was his hip flexor. Yeah. So hopefully it's, you know what I mean? So if it was a calf or a hammy, I'd be like, okay, a week. But I just feel like we've got to lock away these games absolutely earlier. So then we're not chasing tail with 3 games to go, you know what I mean? So, because like we said, the top 2 races, the second spot race is unbelievable at the moment. So, every game matters, even this weekend. You can't. Obviously, I agree that it's an easier team, but we can't take it for granted after losing 2 in a row.
Yeah, no, exactly right. But yeah, so that's the first in I'll speak about. I'm not sure, but that's the change. If McGovern's completely fit, he is 100% coming in. So McGovern in, Kemp out. George Hewitt, exact same thing. Now, I won't touch on what I've got here as well for George Hewitt. I won't touch on it because there's a reason why. So Hewitt in, but he's in for a different reason as to maybe what you might think.
Okay.
Orazio Fantasia in.
Yep.
But if he isn't fit, I've brought in Jack Carroll.
Okay. Yep.
So once again, the mindset of we're playing North Melbourne, probably not the right mindset, if I am honest. Probably isn't the right mindset. Like, probably 2 weeks ago, probably would be the mindset. But I do kind of see where you're coming from. And now maybe my mindset of like, it's North Melbourne. You kind of think about it and you're like, maybe that isn't the right kind of mindset to go with. So, but I'm confident that Orazio would come in, especially with what we've kind of produced. And if if Cottrell comes out, I think Fantasia kind of goes back to that role that he was playing. And I think he was really good at that. So I think Fantasia in, if obviously if he is fit, and if not, I think Carroll would come in. Jesse Motlop, exact same thing. So I think he was to come in, and then that's kind of for Zach Williams. Now my sub, this is the conversation. My sub is Alex Chincotta.
Yes, I was about to put him as the sub before.
And the reason
Mm.
is one, we spoke about it through the game, didn't we?
Yeah,
If he is into tag, that
yeah,
is not the right mindset to go with.
yeah. Yeah,
It was 2 or 3 weeks of the AFL competition of
yeah,
sides need to bring in taggers. They really do.
Mhm.
But very
Yeah.
quickly, it started to kind of go down
Oh,
of like, wait, no, we can't really focus more on them. We need to focus more on us. So
yes.
Chin Cotter, I think I would love Chin Cotter as a sub because just before we said, I think we said before we press record on the episode, if Sheasel is getting off the leash,
Yep.
you've got George Hewitt there in your
Yes.
arsenal as well.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
I love that Matt Kennedy is back in, but
Mhm.
you've got Cripps, Chera, Walsh, Kennedy, Hewitt, Hollins, Fogg. They can all play in the middle.
Yeah.
George
Yep.
can be excluded from that group to tag.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
if we all remember, at Sydney, he was known as a genuine tagger.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he can play that chin cotter role, but
Mm.
he's not in as a tagger.
No,
He's
no.
more in as a player that could be tagging if we need be. But I think Chin Cotter, the only reason he's in right now is to tag, and that's
For
not the
sure.
mindset I like to have. So I think Chin Cotter is a good sub because also he's not just a tagger. He
Yeah.
can be a defender. He can be a forward. He can be a midfielder as well. So it's
Yes.
like
Yeah.
he's
Yep.
got the. I don't think we have the mindset of Chin Cotter. I mean, I don't. I know I don't. I wouldn't have had him as a sub if he's coming on to tag. I don't have that for that reason. I have him to come on and make an impact,
Yeah. Yep.
not tagging. So,
Yeah.
what's your thoughts on Chin Cotter as the sub? And obviously, you have Jesse Motlop, which I absolutely love as a sub. I like hearing that. I'm like, oh, I really like that. But
Mm.
what's your thoughts on the sub being Chin Cotter
Mm.
and kind of George Hewitt tagging if need be, and not focusing more on what they are doing, focusing more on what we can do as a midfield group. Because right now, that is the problem.
Yeah, I agree. I completely agree with Chin Cotter. I feel like it's going to get to a point where it will be pushed out aside. I
Yeah.
hate to say it, it will be. I think, we love the story. We love the, tagging, etc., etc. But you always lose a mid by doing that. Or you always lose maybe another quality player that's probably better than him, but he's playing that role. Of course, there's going to be games where you need to tag in a final maybe, or I don't know. But yeah, I agree with George. He can play that. The good thing about George is he almost doesn't even need a tag. He just needs to be keeping tabs on the player because he gets a lot of the ball anyway. So, yeah, I'd love to see him back in the guts because, God, on the weekend it was really hard to watch. And he's just that guy who gets the ball when you need to get the ball. No one talks about it. He rolls up, does his job, doesn't have social media. That's all I need to say. That's just the way the guy is. He just, meat and potatoes is what I say. Meat and potatoes. He just had, simple stuff, gets his 30 every week. And mind you, like there'd be clubs looking at him after he got dropped a couple of times. For sure. You'd be looking at him. Absolutely. He'd fit in
Mm.
every team. Collingwood would die for a guy like that. Just a guy he gives you 25 plus a week. So we can't take that for granted. He has to play every game if his form like if his form's good enough, of course, but he's got to stay in the side.
Yeah, no, oh, I 100% agree. I still can't believe this is a conversation with George Hewitt on in the side. It's unbelievable. But yeah, well, I mean, another note that I had, I didn't even realise, but like I also wrote down, would like to see Cunningham in the side soon, give him an opportunity.
Yep.
So I love that your selection is giving him the opportunity. I think I would like to see others come in and probably that player that I could have brought in is a Rajo Fantasia where I've brought him in and probably arguably I've brought in Carroll, but after
Yeah.
that, Cunningham as well. So
Mm.
I just think it's the next few weeks. I think probably the chances are North or I think West Coast is too late. I think that's too late in the side. I think by Hawthorn, Eagles, Saints, I would like our finals team set by then.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
obviously comes in Kilda if we do the same thing with GWS of last year of we
Yeah.
kind of already locked in that the fifth spot. I think we finished fifth. Yeah. Last year. Yeah.
Yep.
So if we kind of finish in that spot, like if we're in that spot of we can't move up or down,
Yeah.
maybe we go of that mindset of let's just play a few guys. But
Yep.
yeah, I just it's crucial these next few weeks, and I would love to
Yep.
see David Cunningham get his opportunity as well. But Death Boy, let's now move on to our opposition watch. So for the viewers who don't know what this is, we go through backline, midfield, and forward for the opposition, and we touch on each player for each line and kind of explain why they're a bit of a threat come Sunday afternoon in the graveyard shift at Daffy Boy. But your opposition watch for the backline for the North Melbourne Kangaroos. What was it?
Kanga.
Yeah, God. Golly gosh. But your backline opposition watch, mate. Who have you got?
Yeah, well, I really like the way they've been playing the last 6 weeks or so. I think it's a team that's 17th, but they're playing like probably a top 12 team, I'd imagine at the moment. They're playing really good footy, so can't take them lightly whatsoever. On a fast deck like Marvel, they've got these guys in the back six especially, and the midfield. They've got a strong midfield, so we're going to have to be on. If we're not on in the middle, could be a real struggle and a real tussle. So for me, in defence, I've got their key back who I really like. I really, really like the way he goes about it. It's Charlie Comben. It's always a weird last name to say because I always think it's Comden, but it's Comben.
Yeah, Comben, yeah.
Yeah, it's weird, but yeah, really good player. Obviously he's had injuries the last few years, and he's finally getting continuity. Probably the last 2 seasons playing that defensive role. You can tell he's going to be playing for North Melbourne for a while in that position, don't you? It's we've seen it before with our young team. You go Weeder and he's playing for the next 13 years or whatever. So yeah, he's a really, really good player, and I feel like they probably do they put him to Charlie, I'd imagine. Because core probably goes to Mackay in terms of size, maybe, like just a bit bigger. Because they've always, I feel like when we play North, they always have an injury to their key back, don't they? Like last year we played that game and Ben Mackay was out and they had to put Bonner on on Kerno. And this year, early in the year, I think, who missed this year? Might have been Core missed.
Yeah, I think Pink. Was it Pink?
Yeah, mate. Yes. Yeah, maybe.
Pink?
Well, he's playing our forward now. So
Yep. Well, that's another concept.
which is an interesting position change. But yeah, it's their back six looks a bit more solid, especially with I think Callan Dawson's a good player as well. So they can probably cover our tools, obviously, to an extent. If our tools are playing too well, I think they can get the better of them. But yeah, here's my watch.
Yeah, no, well, I really like what you said about North, and I think, I don't know why, but I don't know if it's just because the games that I kind of watch on the TV nowadays, it kind of always rolls on to North Melbourne playing at the same time, but I just really like the way they play. I think they're really attacking. Well, they have a great forward line and a great midfield, but the back line and the defense is the thing that probably does like a little bit, or like with a Harry Sheasel, he's obviously listed as a half back, but I don't think he's playing as much half back now. So, and he's never been that lockdown defender anyway. So I just think the next few years with Clarko, I think he really wants to try and explore that. And I think with a Comden, he's really he's found that role, which is great. And then even like a Jackson Archer as well, like he's had a good season. Of like a lot of people were probably being a little bit unsure about him playing every single week, but he's proved it. But my backline opposition watch, and it's Colby McKercher.
Yeah.
He's a really good player, and he came back 2 weeks ago from the VFL, and he was in the VFL for about 3 or 4 weeks, which I don't mind if I was a North Melbourne supporter. It was kind of get him to have a bit of exposure in the twos, and obviously Zach Fisher is in the VFL, and he had a really good game last week, so that might be a change where it might be a forced change, because I think Clarko really likes Fisher, and I think a lot of the North Melbourne supporters are calling for Fisher to come back in. So maybe that is a change. And I don't know. Fingers crossed that he plays. Harry Maguire versus Zach Fisher, mate. We would absolutely love it. But I mean, like, I don't know what that might mean for McKercher. Like, he played really well the past few weeks with him having that Zach Fisher role. But I think if Zach Fisher comes in, you have to play McKercher.
Have to.
But especially now that Sheasel's having more of that midfield exposure, which I also like if I was a North Melbourne supporter as well. But yeah, I think it's Colby McKercher. I think he's the guy that really can create that that run off halfback. It reminds me of a Lockie Whitfield. I think that's obviously
Yeah.
a bit of a stretch, but he's going to be a player in a few years. And whether he does move back to Tassie when the Tassie team comes up, I'm
Yeah.
not too sure. That's another conversation. But yeah, I think Colin McKercher is a big threat down there in the back line. But that's what you touch on the midfield in a bit of depth of how many
Yep.
midfielders they do have in there. And there's obviously a guy like Will Phillips who is now playing as a target that was dropped last week, but he's another player. He's a former pick 3, I think it was, and he obviously is some sort of player, but he's now kind of moved to that tagging role, which
Yeah.
who knows what's going to happen there. But your midfield opposition watch for the Roos, who have you got?
Yeah, it's an interesting one on Phillips, actually. He had a few interrupted years. I think he had glandular fever and he had all sorts of shit go on. So, a lot of people go, oh, he's pick 3, he's a flop. But, we had Paddy Dow and he can't get a game at St Kilda. So, in terms of midfield, there's a guy that they always talk about LDU, talk about Simpkin, who, he's good, but he can be hit and miss for me. Obviously Wardlaw's a star. And they got a few other guys who run through there. Zerha sometimes has his minutes in there. And McKercher will be a midfielder. Sheasel is definitely a future midfielder. He's playing more there, that kind of mid forward kind of role at the moment, which I'm really liking from him. But for me, it's Tom Powell. And you look at their team and you go, gee, give him 3 years. Give them 3 years and they're going to be maybe 4 years, and they're pushing premierships, in my opinion. I think they've got the core now. You look at their back line at the moment. You got Comden down one end, you got Larky down the other. So that's your ends, right? And I know there's not North Melbourne chat, and it just works out well, doesn't it? And then you look at the midfield, they've got so many mids that they probably don't need any more mids, to be honest. They can probably fill their draft spots with forwards. Zerha will probably leave to Sydney or somewhere in the off season, which is looking like. So maybe they bring in another forward. They might bring another defender. I don't know, but Tom Powell's he did that massive barrel last week against the Suns, which is the way they're playing. And people will have a laugh at those barrels, but he broke through like 2 layers of defense by doing that, and he knew what he was doing. It wasn't just shove it on the boot. It was directed. He actually meant it. So. And like you said, the way they play, they're so attacking, which also hurts them on the other way. But I think that comes in time. I don't even know if it's a defensive problem at the moment. It's just more that they're pushing so far up. It's that North ball they always talk about. And I like they play exciting footy. If you're going to finish bottom 4, why play boring footy, Patto? Like, honestly, it's like Freo. Like at the start of the year, the first half of the year, they're playing this footy that was slow. They're even still doing it to an extent. You'd almost say North Melbourne games are sometimes more entertaining. I know Freo are getting wins, and that's the whole point of AFL football, to win. It's not to be entertaining all the time. But like you said, you turn on a North Melbourne game, you go, something is always happening. Doesn't matter who they play. So and Tom Powell is one of those players that can be a spark in there.
And like their exciting footy is kind of led at the front by Nick Larky, and I think he is one of the best key forwards in the competition. I just think he needs to kind of work on his one-on-one actually getting the footy, because when he's got the footy, his shots are like literally like a plug a locket of 20 years ago, where it's like that was kind of the normality of kind of always having great set shots, but now it's kind of rare, isn't it? And to see Nick Larky, the amount, like the efficiency he has inside forward 50 set shot at goal, it's unbelievable. So I think that's another reason as to why I think I'm really optimistic about North End. Obviously, they got one of the best senior coaches of the modern era. So that's kind of a great, I guess, person to kind of lead their club forward. There's so many midfielders, and one of the midfielders that I will touch on is Luke Davies-Uniacke. He is a superstar. I love the way he goes about it. I think it's very much like how Patrick Cripps goes about it at Carlton, and I've kind of liked how he's kind of put his trust in North, because he could have really left the past few years to go explore elsewhere, and I'm not too sure. Maybe at the end of the year he might do that eventually, but I don't think he ever will, because I think next year they're kind of looking at getting a new captain because obviously Luke McDonald and Jai Simpkin are the two captains, or is Jai Simpkin the sole?
They're still that I had this conversation with my old man last week, and we said, surely Luke McDonald is still not a captain anymore. He is. He is.
But then is he co-captain with Jai?
Yep.
Yeah, right. Okay.
I reckon the next captain of the North Melbourne Footy Club, they're going to do a early young captain, and it's going to be Harry Sheasel.
God.
Absolute lock. Absolute lock of the next
Reckon?
captain. If it's not
Wow.
him next year, it'll be Simpkin next year again. He is, this is just obviously a segue. I have never seen a player, I know they come out of the TSC system now, all professional, but he's got his own he's got his own thing on Dwayne Russell's show on SEN every week. He speaks like he's 27.
Mm.
You know, Rosie was 23 when he became captain. I was trying to think of this captain who was good and who was young.
Trengove?
Yeah, well, that didn't go well, but no, I just feel like he's one of those players. I think, you know, he's a level head. So
Yeah.
I think, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that's the difference with him and other younger guy. He's got that level head. He speaks well. And I feel like that exciting new era. Sometimes you need a bit of fresh stuff. And let Simpkin and McDonald play the footy. I know you want to let Sheasel do it as well, but I think he's got that capability. That's just my thinking. And I feel like he would be the next one if Simpkin and obviously McDonald stop being captains next year.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I've got a different opinion, and I just think Simpkin is a great captain. I think he needs to be the sole captain. I don't know why Luke McDonald is still co-captain, because I think Simpkin. Whenever I think of North
Yeah.
Melbourne captains, I always think of Jai Simpkin, and I think he will be. I mean, I'm not too sure, but my opinion would be I think Simpkin will be captain until maybe the end of his career, if not maybe a year or two before, to kind of bring in a guy like Harry Sheasel, or as I just mentioned, my opposition watch, Luke Davies-Uniacke.
Yeah.
His leadership, I think it kind of goes a little bit under the carpet in terms of how he leads this team. I think it's very much like a Jack Steele, where he's not very public with the way that he kind of, like, not a lot of people know his leadership in terms of the media side of things, but if you kind of actually listen to him in press conferences, he actually speaks really well. And I think that the way that he plays his football, it's very much what a captain would do. And we've got mine in Patrick Cripps as well. So I think Luke Davies-Uniacke is a super player. And I mean, I kind of thought about Harry Sheasel being captain, but I'm like, because what's he now? 20, 21?
Yep. Yep.
So you reckon he could be captain
next year?
Okay.
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 There was talks about it. There were talks about it, but yeah, in terms of, I reckon Simpkin a couple more, and then you go maybe when Shees was 22, 23, because you want to get to, you know, when you get to that point, it's like when Murph handed off to Cripps, or, you know, I hate the co-captaincy. I hated it when we did it.
Terrible.
I think Cripps should have always been the captain. You know what I mean? I felt like when Docherty was injured, it always felt like the pressure was always on him. I don't know. You know what I mean? It was just that kind of, like, Cripps is the captain. Like, I love Doc, but Cripps is the captain always. So. Yeah, it'll be interesting to watch over the next few years.
Yeah, no, exactly right. But Daft Boy, let's now move on to our last line of the opposition watch, and obviously it is the forward line. So your forward line opposition watch for the North Melbourne Kangaroos. Who have you got?
Yeah, they've got a few kind of interesting forwards down there at the moment. Obviously, the one you named before, Larky, obviously he's the main guy down there. I rate Zerha very highly. Love the way he goes about it in terms of his hardness. It's just more about consistency for him, I think. He's that kind of high impact player, but sometimes it's not enough, is it? Over the whole season. But for me, it's Paul Curtis. Paul Curtis, he's got some about him. He's got the C word in him. I say it about certain players, but he's got, you know what I mean? He's got that, you know, he's always stiff arming blokes, and sometimes it doesn't work in his favour. You know what I mean? Those players sometimes, but I think you got to keep that intensity, because that's how he plays his football. I think you got to let him get away with a few, you know, giving away a few 50s or a few downfields, because that's, if you take that out of his game, he's not the player he is. So yeah, I really like the way he goes about it. He kicks some great. He's got some good highlights. He's kicked some good goals on the boundary. Once again, he's young. It's consistency again. So it'll be interesting to see who goes on him. It could be a Newman, it could be, I feel like Newman would be a perfect in terms of rolling him up all game down in that defence. So that would be a funny matchup because I know Nick Newman's a chirpy bastard, but no, Paul Curtis for me.
Yeah, because I'm probably thinking maybe Nick Newman might go to a Zerha, and
Yeah.
then Sardi probably goes to a Curtis. But
Mm.
I think Zerha has kind of transitioned his game this year of
Yeah.
going up the ground a little bit because Paul Curtis has been such a threat in that forward line. So he's kind of stayed deep. Have you seen the same thing?
Sure. Yeah. One game in particular was obviously the Melbourne game I went to, and you could see him like he was in the middle in that last quarter, or he kicked a goal in that quarter, but that was through the midfield. Like he was running through the midfield, which is good to see. And that is what you add to your game, isn't it? When you're that sort of player. 'Cause I feel like Stringer's always been that type of player, hasn't he? But I feel like he's always been hit or miss because of his fitness capacity or his, aerobic capacity. And obviously Zerha's improved that this year, and Clarko's willing to put him in the middle.
Yeah, no, exactly right. I will be honest, I did have Paul Curtis as the opposition watch, but I was probably expecting him maybe to go with Zerha.
Yep.
But so I won't go with Paul Curtis. I'll go with someone else, and it's a player that have kind of thought about. And it's Nick Larkey. I know that it's very generic, but I think he's just such a threat down there. But I'm kind of confident as well because we've got a guy, Jacob Wiedering, who would go straight to Nick Larkey. But I've just got a question about the back line, because now that Caleb Marchbank is back and he's played a game, hopefully, I mean, you maybe expect him to play this week, or maybe with McGovern coming back, maybe that is
Yeah.
well, I'm not too sure. But if Marchbank does play, you've got a guy down there also with Bryn Teakle, who obviously was a mid-season draft. He's been that he's been that he's kind of covering that Callum Coleman Jones. He's covering that role. And then obviously he's obviously been injured. So he's come in and he's played solid enough. I don't think he's a genuine threat down there as a forward. Hopefully that doesn't come back to bite me in the butt. How do you see that forming out? Because I know that Teakle is a little bit taller than Larky. Or maybe, I mean, I would expect him to be a little bit taller. I don't know if it's a fact or not. But do you see Wiedering going to Teakle? Or do you think it would be Wiedering to... I mean, I probably would hope it to be Wiedering straight to Larky, because did you see on the weekend how Marchbank was on Sam Darcy?
Yes.
And the height difference was
Well, I think sometimes with the height, like I swear when the Dogs play every week and they have Sam Darcy, they go, "Whoa, what a mismatch!" It's going to be a mismatch every week. He is enormous.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? Like it's like people go, "Oh, we don't have the right matchup." Who has the right matchup for Sam Darcy? Let's be real. Like enormous. Like it's literally what you were saying, like spot on. Like it's like what can you do about it? You're gonna have to put someone on him. So, and I thought he didn't have a huge impact.
No.
He played all right, Sam Darcy, but I don't think he had the impact that I've seen him this year.
So would you think it would be Wiedering to Larky, then Marchbank to Teakle?
I think you have to, and then we got Toby Pink down there too. So they got three. They got they got three forwards up there. That's they're tall down there, so it's gonna stretch us out in a sense. So if Marchbank plays, I'd imagine he does because they're so tall. And then even if Gov comes in, he probably takes Zerha or fucking one of those types of players. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, the matchups, because Teakle he's a ruckman, really. He's just he's more of a ruck than a forward, but he plays all right. So he played really well in that Collingwood game a few weeks back. So we can't take them lightly, and the way they're playing, I think they'll want to have a strong start against us.
Yeah, no, exactly right. But like when I kind of think about it, like, would you think there could be a world this week where there could be Weeders, Marchbank, Kemp, and McGovern, and we drop either one of the Boyds or the Cowans, or maybe Chincotta does make way and you kind of make way for another defender? Do you think there's a world of having Wiedering, Marchbank, McGovern, and Kemp?
Maybe. Probably this week. You look at their forwards, you probably go in terms of height chart from tallest to, I know it's not always about that, but you got Teakle, Larky, Pink, Zerha, Curtis isn't short. And I think all those players can probably fit those needs for those opponents. But yeah, it's gonna be hard to see how those other guys get dropped. But you never know with Chincotta; he can always go back as well, like just play as the defender. So that's for me. Like I've always never really been a huge fan of the tag. I know it's always on and off in a certain situation. I love when we know he has to go to someone certain, and like a Butters who struggles with a tag or whoever, and it was merit and so on. But yeah, it's going to come a time where he might have to make way, because if you had Docherty fit and Jack Silvani fit, he wouldn't be in the team. I don't think Chincotta.
Yeah, okay.
I don't think he would be, because I think Doc probably just fills that role, or not a tag role, but just plays a midfield, and they're going to have to worry about us more than we have to worry about them. So it's a interesting situation.
It's actually a good thing that we touched on Doc, because that is another news story that's come out, and we're not saying there's any certainties or it's confirmed, but he's progressing very well, where we might actually see Sam Docherty feature in season 2024. And if you told me that back in March when he did his ACL against the Lions, I would have thrown this energy drink straight in your face, mate, being nice one, mate. But if that is a possibility, Daf, what's your thoughts on that? Because that would be such a feel-good story, and kind of feels like everything's kind of coming together. The pieces of the puzzles, like the piece of the puzzle is starting to come together. If that happens, how good that would be for hopefully a finals charge.
Yeah, it's interesting. Obviously, it's not a lock, but would love for it to happen. I always find it interesting because, like, it shows you how different players' knees recover from ACLs. Because you look at Jack Silvani, he injured his knee a month before Docherty, and he's not even close at the moment. So that shows you, doesn't it? And also Doc, he's done it so many times that he probably finds different ways to get it quicker recovery. But I've actually got a question for you. I thought about it the other day. So if Doc, if he hasn't played a final this year, so we make the grand final, okay? Just pretend we make the grand final, because it's still a hard task at the moment. We make the grand final, he hasn't played a game yet, and we're all settled. Our team is settled. Everyone's settled. And he's fit to play. Are you picking him?
No.
Yeah, same. I think there's feel good story, but I also think there's smarts. Like, for me, my pass mark for him, he's got to play a final before. He's got to play a final. You know what I mean? Before, like, you don't want to be bringing him into the grand final, but gee, he'd be a handy sub.
Yep.
He'd be a handy sub. But then there's someone else getting dropped who's played. That's selection integrity as well. Yeah, I'd say he'd be the perfect sub if he was fit in a grand final. He can play every position.
Yeah.
He can play every position, but that's obviously a conversation for once he is fit, and hopefully once we are in that grand final.
Because that could even be a thing, like come round 24, if we are kind of in that position where we're like, oh, you know what, Docky's ready to go.
Yeah.
Play it, see how he goes, because now he's got that game under his belt. Because I reckon come finals time, it's the exact same. I mean, it's not the exact same situation, but it's a similar situation of last year with Jack Silvani. He was ready to go in the final series, but Vossi kind of went, no, like, you haven't played, and finals is a different ball game. It is not like the home and away season. So and the worst thing to happen would be to have Sam Docherty play when he's underdone and being exposed, and you can clearly see that he is the liability out there. And then you're like, fuck, you've gone with the goods. And Western Bulldogs kind of did it with Bob Murphy, and also Dale Morris as well. Like, that was a play where they probably could have played him. They probably could have said to him, like, look, probably don't go, because I know that Dale Morris didn't have surgery because he wanted to have that chance to potentially play at the end of the year. But they just said, nah. Like, I mean, I don't think he ended up having surgery because he still wanted to try and play, because that was his last year, I believe. But like, that's just another thing where it's like, it's so tough to kind of not go with the good, like the feel good story of playing Sam guy who's been through so much, and if we make a granny and he's available,
Yeah.
I've got to think about it right now, but I'm like, playing him as a sub over a guy like Chin Cotter, who's been really good this year.
If it's between those two, I know who I'm picking.
Who?
I'll be picking Docherty. It really depends on who is it. It really depends on who is the sub. Like if the sub in the prelim is fucking, I don't know. You know, rest him in the prelim for the for the granny. Yeah, it's. I think we're both on the same page. It's a good story. Be fantastic, but I think for him to play in that grand final, if we do play in it, I would like him to play a prior final. And I know he's a different breed of player. He will be, if he plays, he'll be ready. Yeah. Like he knows when he's ready. I think he's that type of guy. He's been through that. But yeah, it's a similar situation to the 2018 grand final with Goldsack. He did his ACL. He did his ACL March 10.
It's the exact same.
It was less weeks too. So he had, I think it was 22 weeks from that point onwards to the grand final. The first week of finals will be 26 weeks post-op for Doc. So, and Doc is Doc. Very fucking massive in if he is in. Imagine if we could bring him in, qualifying final double chance. That would be enormous. I know the double chance and everyone goes double chance. Like I'm not saying we want to take that double chance and lose the qualifying, but it would just be nice.
Would you bring him as a sub for the qualifying if he hadn't played before?
Maybe. Depends what he's done. Like if he's fully fit, if he's at it, and the week off before finals is huge too. Like if he's at a conditioning block like Jack Martin has, why not play him? He's too good not to play too. Like you've got a premiership to win. So I think if it's just a grand final and he hasn't played a game before that, I'm probably not picking him.
Yeah. Because, like, I reckon come the prelim final when we play Fremantle at the MCG, I think you're probably resting Paddy Cripps, Harry Mackay, Charlie Curnow, Jacob Weitering, bring in Sam Durden, mate, and we'll be fine. Because if we're playing the Fremantle Dockers into prelim and you've got Sam Dursey up against Josh Tracy,
oh, God.
We're going straight through to a granny to mate.
He's a good player, Josh Tracy. Fucking hell. 21.
Yeah. He's going to be a star. I can actually remember his debut game, and I'm like the commentators got you can kind of tell when the players are going to be good because it's kind of like a oh my God, it's gone Walter from the Suns, Jed Walter.
Yeah.
Like I think Dermot Brereton was the guy that was really like, this guy's going to be a star, and they were preparing they were comparing him to Charlie Curnow, and then you kind of just straight away knew that this guy's going to be a player.
Nate Caddy.
Yeah, exact same thing about Nate Caddy. I don't think his set shots are that great. He needs to improve on that aspect.
18, he's 18.
Oh yeah, bloody
I'd say a lot of key forwards who are early in their careers aren't the greatest set shots.
Yeah. But I mean, Nate Caddy is another guy, even like an Ari Schoenmaker from the Saints who's playing down back. I think
he'll be good at Carlton in a few years.
Yep.
Yeah, it'd be nice.
Yep.
We could have picked him as well, but man.
I reckon that will be a conversation in draft talk. Trade talk.
Trade talk.
In season 2027 when we kind of interested in Ari Schoenmaker. But who knows, mate? We might even get Nate Caddy down there to play alongside Harry Mackay and Charlie Curnow. But Dave Boy, let's now move on to our highly anticipated match predictions. So for the viewers who don't know what this is, we go through Bagger of the Game, which obviously is the best player on the ground, whether that's Impact or whoever. That's the player that we think will be best on ground, or known as Bagger of the Game. Point of difference, which is obviously quite self-explanatory. The POD, Dave Boy, and then obviously the winner plus margin for this week against the Roos. But Dave Boy, straight to you, your match predictions. What have you got for this week?
First of all, just get a win in this game. But first of all, player of the game, he is going to win the Brownlow by, I'm going to say, 4 votes. 3-4 votes.
Harry Mackay, yeah.
And it's going to be Jordan Boyd. No, Paddy Cripps And Paddy Cripps, 3 votes for me again this week. I think he is in an unbelievable form. No one came with him this week. We need a team to get around him this week. And he'll have another 30 and 2, just like that against the Kangaroos. But my pod this week, oh, it's going to be Jack Martin.
Oh, yes.
It's going to be Jack Martin, and he's going to kick 4 goals against North Melbourne. I feel like he's just set out to have a good end of this year and really get another contract at Carlton, because he doesn't have a contract on the table at the moment. And I think this next 6 weeks of the regular season, and then you got the finals. That 10-week period or 11-week period, whatever it is that is make or break. To be honest, I think it's the club's call at the moment. It's in their hands, it's not in his hands. So he's going to have to make some inroads, but I think he will, and I think he'll make a massive, massive impact coming late in the season finals.
Winner plus margin.
Winner plus margin. We're being serious. The way we've been playing hasn't been great, but I think we can score enough to really. We just got to tighten up defensively. Add defensive numbers. That's why we won 5 in a row. Teams weren't scoring against us, and we were still scoring at the same rate we still are. Now, score the same way, tighten up defensively, Blues by 40. See you next weekend, Port Adelaide.
Yep. Now, I'll just start with a spoiler. Kangaroos by 40. I feel like I'm disrespecting the game. I feel like I do that every week. I'm sorry to the rest of the competition.
But it's like 40 for me is probably respectable. We should be winning this game.
Yeah.
And if it's under 20, there's a problem. Well, it really depends on how they play as well. But
yeah, but I'm just thinking, like, I love the way that they play, and we've said it a few times, but I just don't think when they play against the better teams, we saw it last week against Sydney.
Yep.
When they still played quite well last week in terms of attacking. Because what did they score last week? They scored 59 points. So yeah, it's not great, but
I think against the good teams they lead goals.
Yes,
when the team's on, like we said before, I think they press so high, which is great. That's a great thing because in 3 years' time that'll work out because they'll fix up defensively, right? But I think against us, if we're on and defensively we're on, it could be a very, very nice afternoon.
Stick out of the dome. And Jack Martin. Jack Martin. Yeah, that's what I was about to ask as well. Right now, do you think Jack Martin gets a contract next year? Now that we aren't getting Will Hayward, and that was kind of the whole conversation of if we get Will Hayward, I don't think Martin plays next year. Right now, in this point in time, I know that it's a bit unfair, but I know I've got my I guess my opinion of it. But what's your opinion on Jack Martin right now playing in 2025? Do you think you would give him a contract?
For me, this is where I'm at. Jack, this is a message to Jack Martin.
He watches the channel.
Yeah, he does. He's an avid follower throughout our various channels. Jack, we paid you all that cash, right? Paid you all that cash, and good on you. Take the cash. If you do not take peanuts in this next contract, bugger off. It's got to be 250K. Sorry. He's got to take peanuts. We had 6 years of him barely playing, probably costing us wins, right? Take a low contract and I'm happy. Give me 300 a year, 2-year contract. Bob's your uncle, right? Don't give me 500 plus because he's not at that stage, Patto. If he's playing under 10 games a year, he should not be getting paid 500K a year. It should be 250 to 300, in my opinion. Pay back the faith that we put in you. You know what I mean? I'm not saying he's a bad footballer, but you get me? Like, it's just like it gets to a point where it's like we've stuck around with him. So,
well, you kind of think about his age. He's 29.
Yeah, that's what I mean. He got to take the low contract, in my opinion.
So, if is that the only reason why you would keep him on the list?
He's not getting paid more. He's not getting paid more because we've got We've got TDK to re-sign. We've got Weeder to re-sign. We've got Chera to re-sign. We've got other players to re-sign. We've still got to bring players in all the time. And, we can't, like, most of his contract was taken up the books at some stage. I think now he's on 300 because it's a front-ended deal because it was 1.3 or something. But apparently I heard during COVID, because the contract's halved, so he didn't end up getting the 1.3 million a year. He only got 750 because of COVID. That cost him 600 grand a year. I know everyone talks about, he got paid so much, but it was a front-ended deal, which has actually helped us in the long run for the last few years to have more money in the cap to bring players in. So, yeah, if it's a 300 2-year contract, I'm happy.
And I think it's kind of was like that for every single player, because I don't know who it was through COVID, but I think someone was a bit like not really accepting it.
Yeah.
I don't know who.
Yeah, I don't know.
Or maybe it wasn't publicized.
Yeah.
Because I mean, I kind of understand it, because if someone's coming out and actually saying, I'm not accepting that, and I think you kind of, I guess, kind of look like a bit of a dickhead if you're kind of doing that. But I just think Jack Martin is a fantastic player, and you kind of look at it where maybe you don't give him a contract because, once again, it's like Marchbank. He's the potential of he can be a great player.
Yeah.
But
can he?
Hey?
Can Marchbank be a great player?
Yeah.
Can he?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's interesting, but I'm seeing it as Marchbank and Wiedering work fantastically together. So I just think, what
is he, 29 now, Marchbank? 28? Like, he's going to get to 32 years old and play under 80 games. It's like, I know he has the potential to be great, but anyway.
He's 27.
Yeah. Played 63 games or something.
Yeah.
Anyway, on to your predictions, mate.
So my match prediction. So, bagger of the game, I've gone with Jacob Wiedering, man.
Yep.
Under the dome, there's something about, they probably should change Marvel Stadium to Wiedering Stadium. It's starting. That was a really shit. I thought that was going to go a little bit better, but the people if you thought that was a really shit joke, please let me know, because I once wanted to be a comedian, but I'm obviously not very funny, David boy. So please let me know in the comments. But yeah, I think Wiedering, him obviously going straight to Nick Larkey is a big challenge, but I just think he's such a good player, and I think he's well and truly locked in that All-Australian position. I still can't believe some people are still speaking about Darcy Moore. Somehow they're still speaking about Darcy Moore. I don't know how.
He should be dropped. Yeah. If they had no, really, I'm not even joking.
100%.
I'm not even joking.
I'm not either.
Should be dropped.
Yep.
Anyway, that's another conversation for those bastards. I hope he keeps playing, actually. Sorry.
Yep. Sorry? What?
I hope Darcy Moore keeps playing, because it's great. It's a really good watch at the moment.
Charlie Curnow versus Darcy Moore, round 21.
Well, Charlie's got to pull his finger out too.
Yeah, well, actually, Harry Mackay. Jack Martin versus Darcy Moore, mate. Happy days. But, so, point of difference, I've gone with Caleb Marchbank.
Okay.
So, I think this is probably next week and the week after. If he still produces the same sort of game, I think Kemp probably has a bit more strings to his bow where he can come in for Marchbank. But if Marchbank proves himself the next few weeks, and obviously going off our selections, if McGovern comes straight in for Kemp, it's Marchbank's position to lose. It really is. So I think he's a point of difference come this week. And winner plus margin, I've mentioned it earlier, North Melbourne by 40 points, Daffy boy. And I've got the Blue Bags by 34 points at Melbourne Stadium. And even that, when I wrote that down, is a bit, I wanted to go bigger, but I think the past few weeks I've kind of gone Carlton by plus points, which I probably shouldn't have done. But I think Blue Baggers by 34 points is a good enough margin. But I just think when North Melbourne play against the better sides, it's the defence that really lacks it, especially under the dome at Marvel. That could be a worry. So I think Blues by 34 points, but well and truly could expect it to be a hell of a lot more than that. But Dave boy, that's obviously the last segment that we'll touch on for the preview of the Roos. But is there anything else you would like to touch on before we wrap up the episode? And obviously, we're recording this on Tuesday night, so we're a few days out for the game. So there's obviously a lot that can play out over the next few days. But one more word, I guess, from your end for the game on Sunday.
Just looking forward to it, mate. Honestly, always love going to the footy. So, let's just get down there. Let's get our season. I don't think it's off track.
No,
I think the overall. I think Carlton supporters are used to being so shit that we have to abuse every single player when we lose a game. We're off for 2 weeks. Sydney lost to St Kilda. That's my last point, Patto. That's all I'm going to say. Sydney lost to St Kilda. They lost to Freo. Who beat Freo? We did. If you're a little bit off against anyone this season, you will lose the game. If you're just a little bit off. And, teams make you pay. And those last 2 teams made us pay, unfortunately.
Mm-hmm. And another team that Sydney lost to, fucking Richmond.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. They're a little bit off. What happens, Patto? Richmond were on probably for the second time of the year, and they won the game.
Mm. And this week, it's our time to lose in North Melbourne. Oh, God. Why did I put that into the world? Why did I put that into this universe?
Take that back.
But I mean, obviously it's a big game. It's as we said at the start of the episode, it is a danger game. And that's just because of how North Melbourne play. I think they're a bit like the Dogs, aren't they? I think they're obviously a little bit behind the Dogs, obviously. But when you said that they kind of are playing the past few weeks as a top 12 sort of team, I completely agree. And it kind of is the back line that kind of lacks. So they play a little bit like the Dogs, and seriously, like if they bring the pressure like the Dogs did last week, we can be tested once again. And I would like North Melbourne to bring that pressure, because then once again we can actually see if the boys can actually adapt to that. Because like the pressure, when you really think about it, pressure is in finals as well, if not 20 times.
Yep.
So you need to expose these players to pressure like that, and I don't think they've been kind of exposed to that probably all year. And the type of pressure that the Dogs brought last week was something that I don't think they've really experienced all year. If not, it was probably the week before against Giants.
Yeah, the Giants. Yeah, that was fucked.
Yep. So like they will probably. Sorry, it's another week this week where North Melbourne really have nothing to lose. They will go out there to playing for their club, because they've been dragged through the mud. And now that they're starting to play some decent football, they've got nothing to lose, and they're playing against one of the best sides in the competition right now. They have a point to prove. And obviously Clarko won't want to come out this week and give up a poor performance. And also they did perform last week against a good side. So they're coming up against one of the better sides this week as well. They want to try and prove themselves at their home ground under the dome. But obviously, Daff Boy, that's the last thing that we'll touch on. But we'll probably try and do the review straight after the game. Are you free? Okay, cool. So we'll try and aim to do that. But if not, we will try and sort out a time to get it out. But to every single blue bagger out there, make sure to subscribe on our YouTube channel. I think when we actually say subscribe, I actually had a look at the details. When we actually say subscribe, people subscribe at that time.
Oh, wow.
Which I actually didn't even realize. So when we actually say subscribe, people subscribe. So people subscribe.
Subscribe.
So subscribe. Like it's quite funny, but obviously it is completely free on YouTube, and it does support us as a channel. So make sure to subscribe on YouTube, but also if you want to listen to our audio episodes on Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcasts, there's a few others out there, Daffy Boy. Make sure to get around those, but also get around our socials. Daffy's doing a very good job on those social platforms, and make sure to get around that. But to you, Daffy Boy, and to every single blue bagger out there, the baggers!